The text came in while I was working at my shop. I'm leaving you and moving to Miami with my 20-year-old girlfriend. I've already emptied our joint account. Haha. I didn't flinch as I read it. My voice didn't crack while I helped Mrs. Turner pick out a scarf. The only sign that my husband, John, had just blown up our 12-year marriage with a text was the brief tightness in my jaw. I waited until Mrs. Turner had left, her purchase wrapped neatly in our signature paper, before typing my reply. Good luck. My name is Sarah, and at 38, I just got the coldest goodbye in history, but while John was probably sitting back, thinking I was devastated, I was calmly locking up my boutique. I should have seen the signs: long hours at work that never matched his paycheck, the sudden password changes, the new gym obsession, the clothes, everything to make himself feel young again. 3 months ago, I found a receipt for an expensive dinner for 2 on a night John said he was working late. That night, I opened a separate bank account. A week later, when he wanted to merge our finances, I agreed cheerfully, while secretly moving my savings. The joint account he just drained? It had just enough to avoid suspicion, about 2 months' worth of deposits. The rest was safely tucked away, and I kept records of every shady transaction from him over the last year. Another text came in from John. Don't bother begging. Lisa and I leave tomorrow. I'll get my stuff later. Lisa, the new intern at his office. I'd seen them getting too close at the office party. She thought she was special. I knew better. I didn't reply. Instead, I called my lawyer, the one I'd spoken to 2 months ago when I found hotel charges on our credit card. It's time, I said. Got it. The papers are ready. I'll file them tomorrow. Want me to serve him in Miami? No rush. Let him think he's won. Another text from John. I know this is tough for you. You're not getting any younger. After all, at least you still have your shop. My shop. The business I built myself, from the ground up, and that made more money than his dead-end office job. I smiled, thinking of the letters that would be waiting for him in Miami. Let him think he was on top for now. That evening, I stayed in our house, my house, the one I inherited from my grandmother and kept in my name, despite John's constant hints that we should add him to the deed. Another instinct that paid off. While sorting through papers for my lawyer, I came across our wedding album. John looked so different back then, before his midlife crisis. Now, he wore clothes too tight for his growing belly and acted like a teenager again. The texts kept coming from him. I've been planning this for months. Lisa gets me in ways you never did. You'll be fine. Maybe you'll find someone more your age. I've told my family. They agree we just grew apart. I saved every message, adding them to my evidence folder. Let him dig his own grave. His admission of planning this was perfect for my lawyer. The last text grabbed my attention. By the way, I used the joint card for our flights and hotel. Consider it my parting gift. LOL. Perfect. I called the credit card company. Mrs. James here. I need to report fraud and cancel my card. Of course, ma'am. Can you identify the charges? 2 first-class tickets to Miami and hotel charges at the Royal Palm, booked today. I also need to remove my husband as an authorized user. I'll cancel those charges immediately. John and Lisa would arrive tomorrow to find their tickets canceled and the hotel reservation voided. Another text. Don't worry about the house. I'll let you stay there until you find somewhere smaller. I couldn't stop myself from laughing. Did he seriously think he had a say in my grandmother's house? His ego was out of control. Another message. I know your shop means a lot to you. We can work out a fair payment for your half. My half? Of my business? The one I built, funded, and grew on my own? I poured myself a glass of wine, the good stuff I'd been saving. Tonight, I'd enjoy this small victory. The next morning, John's texts were full of panic. What did you do to our credit card? The airline won't honor our tickets. The hotel canceled everything. I silenced my phone and went to my boutique. Friday was busy, and I had new stock to unpack. Life went on, even when your husband runs off with an intern young enough to be his daughter. Around noon, his mother called. Sarah, dear, John told us everything, how controlling you were, how you drove him away. He says you're being vindictive now. I put her on speaker as I worked on a display. Did he mention emptying our joint account and charging his and Lisa's flights on our credit card? Silence. Well, he said you left him no choice, that you were cold and distant. Barbara, I've got his texts. Would you like me to read them to you? The one where he bragged about stealing our money? Or maybe the one where he mocked my age? Another long pause. It did sound pretty harsh. He said that? she asked. I told him that was completely out of line. I appreciate you calling, Barbara, but I think it's time to end this conversation. My lawyer has advised minimal contact with Mark's family during the proceedings. Proceedings? They've already started. Goodbye, Barbara. By late afternoon, Mark's sister Sarah had started gossiping to mutual friends. It turns out, Mark and his new girlfriend, Emily, were stuck at a cheap motel near the airport. Apparently, their dream of Miami was on hold. He tried using his credit cards, but they were maxed out, a detail I'd noticed months ago. My lawyer called with an update. The emergency hearing is scheduled for Monday. With his admission of draining the joint account and the credit card fraud, we're in a strong position to freeze all remaining assets. Has he been served yet? Not yet, but we've got his motel address. Plus, Emily's social media is giving us a lot of useful evidence. She's been posting about their trip all day and making some choice comments about you. I smiled, thinking of my own solid evidence, a year of suspicious charges, hotel receipts, and those incriminating text messages. Mark was so busy celebrating his freedom that he didn't realize I'd been quietly preparing. Another buzz from my phone. You think you're so clever, but I have copies of all the boutique's financial records. Half of that business is mine. I forwarded the text to my lawyer, adding it to the ever-growing file of Mark's mistakes. Let him learn the hard way about separate assets and business ownership. Sometimes, the best revenge is just being ready. The emergency hearing on Monday went exactly as planned. Mark showed up wearing tight designer jeans and a blazer that screamed midlife crisis, with Emily waiting outside, looking painfully out of place under the harsh courthouse lights. My lawyer presented our evidence, Mark's texts admitting to draining the account, his credit card fraud, his pattern of hidden spending, all neatly documented. Your Honor, Mark's lawyer tried. My client admits to some rash decisions, but Mrs. Thompson's actions have been calculated and vengeful. Calculated? My lawyer replied calmly. You mean prudent. My client protected her separate assets and kept detailed records of her husband's suspicious behavior. That's not vengeance. That's good business. The judge reviewed my documents, the deed to my house in my name alone, the corporation papers for the boutique with only my name on them, and the careful separation of our personal and business finances, which Mark had always complained about. Mr. Thompson, the judge said, looking at Mark, you admitted to draining a joint account and using credit cards to fund a trip with your girlfriend. Do you deny this? Mark shifted uncomfortably. I was just trying to make a clean break, he mumbled. By committing fraud? The judge raised an eyebrow. And now you're claiming rights to property that is clearly separate from marital assets? The business grew during the marriage. Mark's lawyer tried again. The business was established before the marriage, my lawyer interrupted, and Mrs. Thompson maintained a strict separation of business and personal finances throughout. We have evidence of every penny invested and earned. I could see Mark's face fall as reality hit. He thought he could empty our accounts, run off with his girlfriend, and take half my business. He'd never understood why I kept things so separate, and now he was paying the price. The court finds sufficient evidence of financial misconduct, the judge announced. All shared assets are frozen pending dissolution. Mr. Thompson is ordered to return any funds removed from joint accounts within 24 hours. But that money's gone, Mark protested. Then I suggest you find a way to replace it, the judge said, cutting him off. And Mr. Thompson, the court does not look kindly on using shared credit cards for personal trips with someone else. Outside the courthouse, I heard Emily asking Mark about their plans for Miami. His response was drowned out by the sound of my heels clicking confidently on the marble floor, heading back to the business he'd never understood. The next few weeks saw Mark scrambling. He tried claiming the boutique had been his idea, even saying he'd helped fund it. He even tried to claim he was my business partner, all of which were quickly disproven by my careful financial records. He's getting desperate, my lawyer said. His girlfriend's social media shows they're crashing at her small apartment now. Apparently, the glamorous life he imagined isn't turning out so well. Mark's family started reaching out again, this time with a much softer tone. We had no idea, his sister Sarah admitted. He told us you were cold and controlling, but after seeing his texts, how he bragged about taking your money, we were shocked. That's not the brother we knew. His mother called, crying this time. The things he said about your age, replacing you with someone younger, I raised him better than that. I thought I did. I let their calls go to voicemail. They might have mattered a few weeks ago, but now they just felt like people jumping off a sinking ship. The boutique thrived. Oddly enough, thanks to all the gossip, women came in to show support, often buying more than they intended. My ex tried something similar. One customer said while buying a designer bag, thought he could take everything in the divorce. Men like that never expect us to outsmart them. Mark still sent me angry texts every now and then, swinging between guilt and anger. You've ruined everything. I didn't mean to hurt you. You'll regret being so vengeful. Can't we work something out? I forwarded each one to my lawyer, never responding. Let him keep digging his own hole. Through the grapevine, I heard Emily was having second thoughts. Apparently, living in a tiny apartment with a middle-aged man who couldn't afford his own place wasn't the adventure she had in mind. She posted about learning from mistakes, and eventually, removed her relationship status. I almost felt sorry for Mark, almost, but then I remembered his cruel text about emptying our account, the way he mocked my age, and the assumption that I'd be helpless without him. Instead of pity, I felt pride in my planning, my strength, and my ability to protect myself while he underestimated me. At the final divorce hearing, Mark's bravado was gone. He was pale and nervous, his designer wardrobe replaced with old clothes, likely returned to help repay the empty joint account. His lawyer looked exhausted, probably from trying to find a loophole in my meticulous records. Your Honor, Mark's lawyer tried one last time. Despite the separate property documents, my client contributed to his wife's business by offering moral support. Moral support? My lawyer interrupted, raising an eyebrow. Like these texts belittling the business as a little shop or these posts calling it her hobby? The judge didn't say another word. The final settlement reflected my careful preparation. I kept my house, my business, and my assets. Mark got his personal possessions and his car, which was worth less than what he owed on it. You've destroyed me, he hissed as we left the courthouse. I'll have to move back in with my parents. No, Mark, you did this to yourself. I just made sure you couldn't take me down with you. His mother stood nearby, ready to take him to his new home. At 45, back in his childhood bedroom, the irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who'd belittled my age was now living with his parents, while I was running my thriving business. You planned this all along, he accused. No, I just paid attention, and unlike you, I understood the importance of keeping good records. His mother stepped between us. That's enough, Mark, you've embarrassed yourself enough already. I could hear her scolding him as they walked away. Honestly, what were you thinking? A 20-year-old, emptying bank accounts, sending those awful texts? I stood there, feeling nothing but relief. Mark had thought his cruel text would end our story. Instead, it had set my plans into motion. My phone buzzed, not with Mark's angry texts, but with new orders coming in from my boutique's website. Life was moving forward, just not in the way he had expected. 6 months later, my boutique had expanded to a second location. The irony was clear. While Mark struggled to rebuild his life, the little shop he'd mocked was thriving. I'd hired 3 new employees and launched an online store that was gaining traction nationally. Mark's situation had become local gossip. He'd tried dating apps, but women his age weren't interested in a man living with his parents. Younger women, hearing about his history, steered clear. Melissa had even warned her friends, sharing screenshots of Mark's desperate attempts to win her back. His career was also on a downward spiral. The HR department at his company had investigated his inappropriate relationship with a subordinate, leading to a reprimand. His expected promotion went to someone else, someone without a history of inappropriate behavior. He tried claiming age discrimination, but Amanda told me, he said they were punishing him for dating someone younger. HR added that complaint to his file. I was surprised when Amanda showed up at my store. Her presence spoke volumes about how Mark had alienated his own family. I know we didn't support you at first, she admitted, running her fingers over a scarf. He played the victim so well, but watching how he handled everything, how he acted afterward, I'm ashamed we ever believed him. My lawyer kept me updated on Mark's continued attempts to challenge the divorce settlement. Each petition was denied. He even argued that his text about emptying the account was just a joke. Haha, my lawyer said, laughing. The judge asked if haha made theft less illegal. The boutique's success became unexpected validation. Local business magazines wanted to feature my story, not as a scorned ex-wife, but as a savvy businesswoman. I began giving talks to young entrepreneurs, sharing advice on keeping business and personal finances separate. The best protection is preparation, I told one young woman who reminded me of Melissa, and always trust your instincts. Mark's mother called occasionally, Usually after one of his failed attempts to fix his life. He'd tried online gambling and even got involved in a pyramid scheme. Each quick fix only made things worse. I don't know where we went wrong with him, she sighed during one call. His father and I offered to help him, but he still blames everyone else, you, Melissa, the judge. I listened politely but kept my distance. Their family drama wasn't mine anymore. My life was focused on expanding into a third boutique and possibly adding luxury accessories. The only reminder of Mark's impact was a framed screenshot in my office. His last text before I blocked him: "Have fun with your little shop. At least it'll keep you busy in your old age." Below it, a business award sat. Proof that success was the best revenge. 1 year after the divorce, I hosted the grand opening of my third boutique. The event drew local media, and the story they wanted to tell wasn't about my failed marriage. It was about a successful businesswoman expanding her brand. Mark's betrayal was a mere footnote in my success. Melissa walked in unexpectedly during the event. She looked younger than ever, or maybe I just felt stronger. She shifted awkwardly, clutching her purse. "I owe you an apology," she said softly. "I believed everything Mark told me about you being cold and controlling, about how you didn't support his dreams. Then I saw him try the same manipulative tactics on me when things got tough." I continued arranging designer sunglasses. "Those weren't his dreams, Melissa, they were just escapes." "I know that now." She paused. "He tried to move in when you froze the accounts. He thought my studio apartment would be temporary. After 2 weeks of him complaining about the size of my closet and suggesting I take out a loan for a bigger place, I finally understood what you meant about the difference between dreams and escapes." I couldn't help but laugh. "Let me guess, he had big plans but no way to fund them?" "Exactly. Everything was going to work out once his investments paid off, once he got that promotion, once his cryptocurrency finally increased in value." She shook her head. "I'm dating someone my own age now. We have student loans and a small apartment, but at least we're building something real." After she left, my assistant manager whispered, "Was that the girlfriend?" "No," I said, smiling. "That was just another woman who learned the same lesson." "Speaking of lessons," I said, gesturing toward a young couple examining our designer handbags, "let's talk about your idea for expanding our accessories line." The boutique had grown into more than just a business. It was a symbol of independence and resilience. Young entrepreneurs often came to me for advice, and I always stressed the importance of protecting their assets. Mark's mother called one final time, not to talk about Mark, but to thank me. "You taught our family an important lesson," she said, "about enabling bad behavior and making excuses for cruelty. Mark's still living at home, still blaming everyone else for his problems, but we're not defending him anymore. That's your legacy, to show us the difference between supporting someone and enabling them." I thought about that legacy as I reviewed plans for a fourth location. Mark had intended to diminish me, to trade me in for a younger woman and take half of everything I'd worked for. Instead, he'd pushed me to become stronger, more successful. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. Mark filed another petition to revisit the settlement. The judge dismissed it immediately and ordered him to pay court costs. "Thought you'd enjoy that." I smiled, imagining him still stuck in his childhood bedroom, trying to rewrite an ending he'd never controlled. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. 2 years after Mark's cruel text, I was invited to speak at a women's business conference. The topic wasn't divorce or betrayal, it was about building and protecting a successful business. My story had evolved from a cautionary tale to an inspiration. During the Q&A, a woman asked about keeping business and personal finances separate. "My husband says I'm being paranoid, that marriage means sharing everything." "My ex-husband said the same thing," I replied, "right up until he tried to claim half my business in our divorce." I paused. "Trust your instincts. Protection isn't paranoia." The boutique chain had expanded to 5 locations, each more successful than the last. The little shop Mark had mocked now employed 30 people and had been featured in national magazines. Through mutual friends, I heard Mark had finally moved out of his parents' house into a small apartment above a garage. After his former company downsized, he'd taken a lower-paying job. His dating profile still listed him as young at heart, though his photo was clearly outdated. Ironically, Melissa had become a regular customer at my original boutique. She'd earned her business degree and started her own social media consulting company. "You inspired me," she told me once, showing how a woman can build something lasting instead of falling for empty promises. I kept Mark's cruel text framed in my office, not as a reminder of pain, but as proof of how far I'd come. Below it hung a sign that read, "Success is the best revenge." At the 5-year anniversary celebration of my boutique, I stood addressing my employees and loyal customers. The space had transformed from a modest shop into the flagship store of a thriving business empire. Mark's mother was there, though I hadn't invited her. She waited until the crowd thinned before approaching me. "I saw Mark yesterday," she said, smoothing her designer dress, one she'd bought from my store. "He was talking about his glory days, about the life he could have had. He still doesn't understand that he didn't lose everything in the divorce. He threw it away." I thought of that cruel text, his assumption that I would crumble without him, how he expected me to beg and break. Instead, I'd built something stronger. Each new boutique location was a testament to what women could achieve when they stopped dimming their light for insecure men. As I explained a new inventory system to a young saleswoman, also named Melissa, I caught my reflection in the store window. I saw what Mark had failed to see 5 years ago, not a woman growing older, but one becoming wiser, stronger, and more successful. His cruel text was meant to be an ending. Instead, it had been a beginning, not just for me, but for every woman who heard my story and realized she deserved better than someone else's midlife crisis.